So the conviction that there is no human soul and human life ends with the death of the body, that might be one of those dismal, unhelpful truths. I'm not going to enter into the question of whether that is in fact true, but it makes an example of a thing that reason might lead you to believe. But then you might resist, you might not want to think that, whereas if reason led you in the other direction, you might be persuaded by reason, but also accept it happily with the idea that it's good for you and good for others. So to bring this back to toleration, perhaps we might be convinced by Locke's argument or by others, but then think that toleration is one of those dismal, not very decent, unhelpful truths. We might be persuaded by reason that it's the best way, but not to be happy about that fact and to be a little reluctant. The reason we would be is that it seems to lower the value of all things. After all, as we extend toleration in the modern world, then does that mean we extend doubt and uncertainty about everything? Can we say that since all opinions must be tolerated, that then there are no opinions that are really either true or false? That seems to have the character of a logical contradiction, and if all opinions are neither true or false, then that opinion that I just stated must not be either true or false. And what was the point of me saying if it isn't true? Why should you listen to it if it isn't true? So there's a logical contradiction there, but also an error of mood, I might say, that it seems to subtract out all the high and important things of life. Even if we back off and we say, well, there may be some facts in life, but other things cannot be proven and must be regarded as neither true nor false. One difficulty with that is that our most important beliefs are bound to end up in the wrong category as mere opinions against solid truths. Once you start admitting that there are facts, then those things have an extra importance because they really are true, and then they're a judgment on the things that cannot be said to be true. And what comes under the things that we can't say are true? All the things that matter to us most. You get married out of your conviction that some person is really worth loving, but then that you might have to say, but that's not just an opinion. It's neither really true or false. Or, do you feel that your country is worth dying for? Your religion will save your soul. All of our most important opinions seem to be in the lesser category. If we say that some things can be said to be true, but some need to be tolerated, are we saying that those things that matter most to us are, in a general way, unimportant? Well, now we seem to have taken in some way, taken the top off of life, the way that mining sometimes just knocks off the top of a mountain and lowers it down into a level with everything else. It was a beautiful mountain for everyone to look up and at and be inspired by, and now it's just a flat piece of ground. We seem to do that by toleration with all of our most important opinions, and so perhaps we'd end this book convinced that toleration is the right way, but reluctant about that. And yet that's not where Locke wants to take us, or how he's constructed his argument. And this is one of the beauties of his argument, that he wants to make toleration sound reasonable. He gives arguments to show how reasonable it is, and yet preserves the beauty and importance of what to us as human beings seem the highest truths. And that's a good measure for our own ideas of toleration. Not only do we recognize that toleration is important, not only do we honor it in what we say and what we do, but also does it permit a kind of love, falling in love with a religion or a person or a country or any high and noble goal? Or does toleration necessarily lower the ceiling and cut off our highest possibilities? Locke wants to avoid that out. I tend to think that toleration is a kind of truth, that the argument for it is reasonable and we should all be compelled to see the reason of it, but also to think that toleration is a helpful and a decent and a happy opinion. And of course, those might be wrong. We should be open to the failure of these arguments, but I think we should also remember that these two things can be independent, that there can be truths that are not helpful and helpful things that are not true. So perhaps the modern attitude that not only does reason compel us to toleration, but also that decency and a regard for our own happiness and the happiness of others should make us welcome it. Perhaps that welcoming would be wrong. Perhaps we should understand it as a great danger precisely because it denies the truth of things and denies us the particular possibility of falling in love with what's higher. Now, to turn more directly then to Locke's argument, how does he argue about this? Well, against the counter argument, we see that his giveaway, you say, that means that the person he invented to argue against him is going to have a chance to speak. So this person thinks that it's wrong to make an idolatrous, a false church equal to a true one. And Locke answers in his customary way that every monarch is orthodox to himself. We all think that we have the truth. And he wants us to remember that while religion is different everywhere, there is in a way something the same about all countries, that they've all got a civil power. And in all of those, the people with power are tempted to favor themselves over what perhaps the rights that other people have that should be respected. So he begins talking about the religion in Geneva. That would be the home of the most old school, serious Protestantism, as opposed to the Roman Catholic Church. And in his world, this is the great rivalry. And since there are clearly different places, some are Catholic and some are Protestant, and each one has a magistrate and a civil power, we would have to say that at least one of those people, if they're not being tolerant, at least one of those people is committing grave and immoral actions against religion that should be tolerated and may be true. If there are two great alternatives and they're both being hard on the outsiders among them, then one of them would seem to be being hard on people with the truth, and this is unavoidable, unless, of course, you want to say, well, they're all wrong. But Locke's argument is that if you want the rules to be the same for everyone, but you don't want your religion or the true religion to be persecuted, then your only action would to be in favor of toleration. That's the because even if you're convinced that your religion is the true one and you live in a place where the political power supports that by making the rules the same for everyone, to say we can punish idolatrous churches because they're wrong, you would be giving that same permission to other people who would do things backwards and would be persecuting you if they got the chance, which leads to an interesting argument. I've asked you about this in the reading questions, so you could look at this paragraph on page 16 and maybe add this next one when you're considering. Locke is talking about the original inhabitants of the Americas, developed their religions and lived by them for centuries before any of the Christians came into contact with them. Locke did some legal work on behalf of the colonies of one of the United States, so he was always interested in these possibilities in that world. And so I will leave that up to you to explain and interpret the argument, but it captures a lot of what Locke wants to say about toleration.